Good morning from Channel 98.9 FM. I'm Kathy Stoltz, and I'm here this morning talking with Chief Shopene from the Corry City Police. He's been nice enough to come on and talk to us again, and today we're talking about domestic violence in our area. Good morning, Chief.
Good morning.
To start off with, Chief, I want to say thank you for coming on again and being a part of this effort to bring information to the people of Corry and the surrounding area. So let's start off talking about the prevalence of domestic and teen dating violence.
The domestic violence and teen dating violence for years has been prevalent, but not really talked about. Part of our goal through the Domestic Violence Task Force is to start talking about and getting this information and this issue out into the main conversation within the community.
Mm-hmm. It's always been kind of a hush-hush, nobody talks about it, and a hidden thing. So this is a good thing
it's always been, especially with the adult domestic violence, a family issue, so to say. And we want to educate, and it's not a family issue because it affects so many different aspects of our community for that one domestic violence issue.
Right. It's not just the two people involved in it. It does have kind of a ripple effect in the family and the community, right?
It does. The amount of man hours lost on the work and production at work lost because of domestic violence is very large. Also, the medical costs for domestic violence are also very large. So it does have a ripple effect throughout the community through manufacturing, work productivity, healthcare. So it does affect a large area.
And not to dismiss the fact that it also affects those in the family. If there's children, if there's other people involved in the situation, it does make for a very difficult situation for kids, and you have to deal with that also in some aspect.
Yeah, the kids, everything they see at the home, the kids bring to school with them. So the school ends up having to deal with the issues with the children, and if the children see mom and dad, whether it's physical violence, verbal abuse towards each other, they don't see any other healthy relationship, they learn from that. And they think that is a proper way to act.
Exactly. So that does have a big effect everywhere. So let's go on from there and talk a little bit about what are the options for victims in this area if they are involved in a domestic violence situation and they want to get out or they just want to talk to someone.
Well, we're lucky enough to have Safe Journey. They're stationed over in Union City. They provide a shelter, but they also provide several counseling services to victims of domestic violence and empowerment programs for victims of domestic violence. The hardest thing to do is, a lot of times is to leave a domestic situation because there's so many stigmas through the years attached to it. Some which are starting to be broken down now is, some religions taught, with the Bible preaching and words in the Bible, that the woman is supposed to, serve and obey, or the maid is supposed to serve and obey the other one.
Right. Or be submissive to their husband.
Yes.
There's, all kinds of things in different faiths that do kind of make it difficult for people when they're great believers and they have great faith and they believe in their church to step out and say, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Other than the faith thing, there's also an economic problem for victims of domestic violence. And how does that keep people from going?
A lot of times domestic violence isn't physical, but it can be isolation, and the isolation is from family and friends, and it can be economic dependency on the other mate, which means the other mate controls all the money, gives the person an allowance to get through the week or whatever, but they control all the money, they control the checkbooks, they control the savings account, and the victim has no idea what they have and no idea how to go about getting economic freedom for themselves.
And that's why having the Safe Journey available in this area is so important. For people to be able to reach out and to have information out there that they can see. There is a option for them. How do we go about, or how do, as other people in the community, can you talk a little bit about recognizing domestic violence?
Within the family unit or within the work and friendships, look for signs. Dependence on total dependence on one of the people in the relationship. Look for isolation. She used to, if it's a female, she used to go for girls' night out, once a month, and now she is making excuses why she can't go now. Having less and less contact with friends and family members. Those are all part of domestic violence, which isn't talked about a lot, but that's part of the isolation process of domestic violence.
So those are just red flags that you look for if you have a friend or family member that may be involved in a domestic violence situation. Yeah. But I think that we need to say a little bit about how that can be difficult for someone to reach out to their friend because they may not want to make trouble for that person.
That's correct. What people can best do is be supportive and educate yourself on the signs of domestic violence, because domestic violence is so much more than the physical side of it. It is the continued put downs, the name calling, the total lack of self-esteem. Once you're barraged by this day in and day out, we need to educate the people what to look for besides the unexplained injuries.
Exactly. And I just wanted to mention, I'm talking to Chief Shopene from the Corry City Police on Channel 98.9. Chief, let's talk a little bit about this regional task force that's been developed. Give us some information on that.
Here, about 3 years ago now, Lori Paslin, Director of Safe Journeys, and myself started doing a couple programs together. And we were talking about how we can bring better programs to the victims of domestic violence in the rural area, because there are so many obstacles in rural areas for victims to be able to get help. One's transportation, one's the availability to access those programs. So through the Rural Domestic Violence Task Force, we're looking to expand the areas that are serviced and expand the programs that are available for domestic violence victims, and expand them to all the communities in rural Erie County. Not just Corry, not just Union City, but reach out to Edinburgh, reach out to Wattsburg, Waterford area, so we can have a larger presence for those victims to be able to come and obtain services and get help from Safe Journeys.
You and I were at a domestic violence kind of seminar thing that Lori and you presented. You mentioned, or she mentioned, something about they now have a bus service that will take people to Safe Journey to attend the groups and things that people need or want.
Yeah, there is now a bus service in town that runs between Corry and Erie, and one of the stops is in Union City. So during the daytime, if there's a program over there during the day, you would be able to catch a bus over to Union City for those programs. Or they also offer programs here in town also. And if you're in town, you can jump on the 105 loop to get to downtown, to get to the programs when they're having them downtown. But also the bus service from Corry to Union City to Erie is another way to be able to get people that don't have transportation over to the services they need.
And what are the services that are available through Safe Journey?
They'll assist in getting a protection from abuse order. They have group sessions for victims of domestic violence. They have counseling sessions on economics. They can assist working to find housing for victims of domestic violence. They have the teen dating violence program. They have the medical training advocacy for first responders to recognize domestic violence. We now have a workplace, a program where we go into the workplace and present to the management of the company on the signs of domestic violence in the workplace and what can be done to assist your employees who may be having that issue. So there's a vast array of programs that Safe Journeys offers to the victims now, more so than ever before.
I know that you recently got a grant for the task force to develop more programs. Can you talk a little bit about that award and how much you got, and maybe a little bit about how that's planned on being used?
Yes, here in I believe at the end of September, we were notified that we would be receiving a grant for just shy of $750,000 to increase the domestic violence programs and education on domestic violence in rural Erie County. Some of that money is going to be spent on going into the classrooms right now into Corry and Union City and talking to different grade levels about domestic violence. Of course, the high school is going to be the teen dating violence, what are good relationships. And in the elementary school, there's going to be programs on, what's a healthy relationship with your friends and stuff like that, but not really getting into what domestic violence is, but talking about healthy relationships and stuff like that.
Which is a really good place to start with the work your way up from the little kids right up to the big people. Anything else that you want to talk about this morning, Chief?
Yeah, part of the grant is also the Erie Community or the United Way of Erie County also gave us a grant to go towards buying a van, which part of this grant is going to be mobile advocacy. Taking it into the apartment complexes, trailer parks, high-density regions to provide information, to provide programs, to talk to the children. It's going to be like a children-friendly atmosphere, but it will get us out into areas that may not be really reached, with information about the domestic violence.
Well, that's really an exciting part of this whole task force and the grant that you were awarded. I think that's really going to be an important part of the things that you're trying to do, you and Lori and the other people on the task force. One other thing I wanted to ask you about was, now that we've talked about domestic violence and the other things, what do we tell victims? Where do they go? Where can they look for help or information on domestic violence? Where are the places in the community they can look?
Well, right now you can contact the police department. We've always given information on domestic violence. Call Safe Journeys directly. They have a 24-hour hotline. Someone is there to talk to you and answer your questions. Part of the grant is we're going to be developing. It's called a Purple Dot program, which we're going to be going out and teaching business owners, businesses, the signs of domestic violence and what's available for victims of domestic violence. And those places are going to be designated with purple dots in the window, so the victim knows that they can go in there and they'll have someone available to talk to them about domestic violence and give them information on domestic violence. The other thing is several of the churches and the Ministerial Association are involved with the task force, and they're presenting programs in the church and information at some of the churches on domestic violence programs that are available out there. So part of the grant is to get more people trained to give information on domestic violence. Part of the grant is to educate the children of the community on domestic violence, and and the big thing is the education part. Let's start talking about domestic violence. Let's get it out there in the normal conversation, that's going on every day. Let's not hide domestic violence in the corner. And for men out there, speak up to your peers. Let them know it's not okay to strike, demean, call names, of their spouse or significant other. Until men start stepping up in this conversation and making their peers accountable, that's part of what we're trying to do through the task force is, get men involved so, they can show good relationships, and they can also talk to their peers about domestic violence.
Right. Men need to make other men accountable and themselves about domestic
That's correct.
violence. And that it, like you said, it's not right. It's not okay. And your buddies don't think it's okay either.
That's right.
Right. Okay. Anything else?
On the teen domestic violence, teen dating violence side, Safe Journeys will be in the school all next week at the high school, putting on programs and giving out information at the Corry High School on teen dating violence. We were at the boys' basketball game. I had a table talking to people here Tuesday night on teen dating violence, and looking at setting up Safe Journeys to come over to talk to the Corry Neighborhood Watch about teen dating violence. Because parents need to know the signs of teen dating violence. Whether you have a boy, whether you have a girl, you need to know the signs. And it's the constant control, the constant checking up. The trying to force one to do something they're not comfortable with. That's all part of the teen dating violence spectrum.
Okay, that's a really good thing to talk about, and a good time to talk about it since they're going to be there next week. So maybe your kids, your teens, may be coming home and talking to you, or maybe reaching out. So be prepared to talk to your teen if they come to you next week and need to talk to you about a situation that they may be involved in that's making them unhappy, uncomfortable, or even in an injurious relationship. Chief?
Yes.
If there's nothing else, I want to thank you again for coming in, and I also want to thank you and Lori for being a part of this valuable task force that's going on in the region. I look forward to doing more work with the task force, and that's about it. You got anything else?
Nope. Thank you, Kathy. And this is a very important message that needs to be out in the community. And education is the key.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you again, and you have a fabulous weekend. I look forward to seeing you probably at the next task force or neighborhood watch.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy.